Welcome to the STEM Confidence Podcast, where we talk about how to turn your data into powerful insights. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the STEM Confidence Podcast. Today, we are talking about the top 5 slide mistakes that I see when STEM professionals are giving presentations. This episode is inspired by a recent conference that I attended, and I noticed that many expert speakers made at least one of the mistakes we are going to discuss today. So without further ado, let's move on to the top 5 slide mistakes and how to correct them. Mistake number 1 is thinking that the presentation is equal to slides. What do I mean by that? Imagine someone asks you to make a 30-minute presentation. You could instantly think that this equals to making 30 slides, but this is actually not true at all. If you have 30 minutes, this should include the introduction to the story you want to tell, the slides that are going to support the story, and some questions you are going to address during or after the talk. In more formal settings, it is very important to respect the time limit. So when someone tells you that you have 30 minutes, this doesn't mean you need 30 slides. Alright, mistake number 2 is to put too much data in one slide. Whether too much text, because it looks awful and confusing, or too much graphics, because it is also very confusing to your audience. I believe we have all seen the typical overcrowded slide with a bunch of text on it. These slides make your audience shut down automatically. People will try to read at first, but soon they will give up and stop following. Something similar will happen if you have too many graphical elements, like charts or figures, for example. When there are too many elements on the slide, people will be confused where to look at, and they will stop listening to what you are saying. The key in both cases is to show on the slide just enough data for the people to be able to follow your talk. Less is usually more in this case. A good strategy to build a slide is to put all the information that you feel relevant and then subtract the excess. With any new element, ask yourself, how does this element make it easier for the listener to understand your point? If you don't have a clear answer to that question, you should probably remove that element. Remember, you should be very strict about the elements that stay on your slide. Moving on to mistake number 3, which is not having slides that follow a clear order. This one is more common than one would actually imagine. So here is the deal. Before constructing the slides, you should have a clear idea about what you are going to tell your audience. Then you build a storyline around your topic by setting a context, establishing a problem, and then offering a solution to that problem. It has to follow this exact order. Otherwise, people will get lost within the story, and the audience will not understand your point. So make sure that the order of your slides supports the order of your storyline. Next, mistake number 4 is to use too many fonts and colors in order to highlight some important points in your slides. While highlighting can be a great tool, using too much of it is not recommended because it is basically confusing. So let's discuss how to highlight the most important information on your slide. I usually recommend choosing one color or font to highlight certain words. For example, if you have bullet points, it is a good idea to highlight the most important word or phrase in each one. This allows the people to scan and immediately detect the important point. Another tip is to additionally emphasize the highlighted word when speaking. By doing so, you make sure that your point is stated clearly. Another good highlighting option is to highlight the main concepts in the color of the figure. For example, Imagine you have a chart showing 3 different datasets, each represented in one color. You could use the same color coding scheme when highlighting words in the explanatory bullet points. Applying this method adds cohesiveness to your slide, and it also makes it easier for your audience to follow your talk. And finally, the fifth and biggest mistake: not adapting slides to your audience. And this is probably the most common mistake that I see happening all the time. The solution to this is to spend substantial time to make sure you understand who you are talking to and what are these people looking for. There are many ways in which you can explain one topic, and those ways should be always chosen by the criteria of who your audience is. Oftentimes, it is a good idea to avoid putting on slides whole sentences that are too jargonic. Always aim to simplify your ideas and connect them with the examples that your audience might relate to. And finally, the most important thing to remember when designing the slides is that slides are only a tool that allow you to make your story reach the audience. They are not the main element of the presentation. The main element of your presentation is the storyline. However, well-designed slides help both you and your audience in achieving effective communication. Thank you for listening, and until next time. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you are ready to elevate your communication skills and transform your data into valuable insights, schedule a free discovery call on the link in the description.